Hello, this is Taha.
This is Anayana.
This is Movie Masala.
We're here to yap at you about films we watched recently.
And today we're doing
The Secret Agent, directed by Kleber Mendonça Filho.
Sebastiana,
Só sim, a senhora de pô. É Marcelo?
sou eu. Tudo bom?
Tudo bom. Queria um bilu,
Poxa,
pode?
entra aí.
Esse é Clóvis. Sabe aí, menino? Nós teve.
Opa, tudo bom, bicho?
Tudo.
Tudo bom? Tá seguro aí?
Tô sim, pode ir.
Simbora.
Percy. Before we start this, I just want to say right now, there's so many good movies out. I just want people to right now, just in general, before we even talk about this film, which is another part of the best international films nominated this year for the Oscars. Alongside this, Raat is out. You can watch If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Just in general, go watch movies right now. That's just my upfront message. There's some good movies out right now.
I watched 4 films in the last week, and I don't think I've had a better time.
I also watch Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, which is also a very interesting film to watch. Yeah, just if you want original films, go watch a movie. So, The Secret Agent.
Yeah. My first thought was at the same after finishing the film, so I watched it in the cinema. It was like a 6 p.m. show, so by the time I got out, it was like almost 8:40. Because yes, this film is 2 hours and 40 minutes long. But my first thought was, wow, that did not feel like 2 hours and 40 minutes. And then my next thought was, why didn't this win more awards? Or like, this was fantastic. I'm so exhilarated and thrilled right now.
On the other hand, I watched this at home and I, for the first half, definitely was really trying to keep myself attentive for the film, is the nicest way of I can say it. And I don't think it's because the film specifically was, I wouldn't say it's boring, but I do think it is very slow paced at the start. And I don't think this is a film that you just put on and like it will hook you in. I personally felt you have to sit down and pay attention, but it does reward you for your attention.
I agree. I definitely think that the first, so the film is divided into 3 parts, and I 100% feel like the first 2 parts, they are really slow and they are paced really, really slow. And I was like genuinely surprised at myself because a lot of the times I don't enjoy slow films. I do fall asleep in a lot of them. But this one had me like hooked for some reason because I had no idea what was going on. Right, at least in the first part, I was like, what is going on? I have no idea who these characters are. Where are we? What is this setting? But something about that not knowing and the way that was kind of like treated in the film, it felt like the film knew that most of its audience would have no clue about what was going on.
Yeah, I think in like we've talked about with It Was Just an Accident, the film doesn't give you what's happening. You piece what's happening as you go through the plot and the characters, like, interact with different people, say certain lines of dialogue, and you just, like I said, it pays you back for your attention. You cannot passively watch this film even if you tried because it will make no sense.
Exactly. And just to like go into what is happening since we've talked about it. So we're basically in 1977 in Brazil in the middle of the political turmoil that's happening during the Brazilian military dictatorship, which, is called in the film and just generally as well, a period of great mischief.
Which is kind of like the tagline of this film as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're following this kind of sad looking guy who we know as Marcelo, played by Wagner Moura.
Mm-hmm.
And we know he is Marcelo for the longest time. And I'm not going to give away who he actually is or something because I genuinely feel the discovery of who this man is a big part of this film. But we know he's on the run from something, from like context clues. And we know we're in a Brazil right now that is just off-putting because one of the first scenes is Marcelo pulls up to a petrol station and he sees a dead body covered by like a sheet of cardboard. And the petrol station, like, he died a few days ago. He's just been lying there. The police will come, whatever. And I'd seen this particular scene from the trailer. And I thought this was going to happen like way into the film. I thought this was going to be like a chase film. But then to have this at the start, I think really, really hooked me.
Yeah, I think it's the first symbolism out of many that the film will do. And symbolism, which is also not very hard to decipher, not saying that it's not done well, is just like the film is not shy telling you what it is about. And immediately you're seeing that, oh, like, oh, this is the metaphor for the larger situation, which is this rottingness that's just made to lie there, being picked apart while nothing is being done to, approach it. That the people who are responsible are ignoring it in favor of other distractions right now. Again, which is another part of where the film is, which is carnival, which is like continuously in the background of this film and creates this sense of chaos, as the film also talks about, right? In this way of like the people are distracting themselves, but it is just this larger chaos around, which is the carnival also embodies.
100%. And I think like there's a human leg that a shark has eaten that shows up a lot in this film. And I'm not gonna lie, every time this leg showed up, I was like, what the fuck is going on with this leg? And that's also like, the carnival, a symbol of like the amount of institutional distraction of the public that is going on from like the actual like political instability and the violences through all these ridiculous, almost like fantastical elements. So I think it really like it has a lot of these like symbolic moments or allegorical moments, but it's never like too vague or too subtle about it. It just genuinely in the moment kind of makes you go, what am I watching? And that's not to everyone's taste. I know that's not to everyone's taste, but it genuinely was to mine, to my surprise as well.
Also, like the leg, specifically the hairy leg, was an actual like urban legend during this time in the northeast of Brazil. And here it's much more used as this like metaphor for like, I think dictatorship would be appropriate to say, like it's a metaphor for dictatorship or like more authoritarian regimes or authoritarian tactics and stuff like that. And you can also see, like, I found it very interesting. The leg was only attacking people who were like homeless, LGBTQ plus people, like prostitutes, stuff like that. So it was again this urban legend, but it was hurting people that were already at the most disadvantage by the state.
And since you brought up the people that this urban legend myth hairy leg was attacking, like people who were homeless or the LGBTQ people or sex workers, I think this film does a really good job of representing this is such a cliche word to use, but I don't know any other word to use, the diversity in Brazil and the kind of the internal conflicts within the Brazilian population as well. Because there's like a lot of dialogue that shows southern Brazilian racism towards the north of Brazil as well. There's a lot of dialogues that reference the indigenous population of Brazil, even with like Marcelo's mother, who kind of really shows up towards the end a lot more, or like is spoken about a lot more towards the end. She's called India, which is a reference to the indigenous population, but she is consistently absent. She's consistently erased. Marcelo is like always looking for her but can never find her.
She's like haunting the narrative from the background in some ways as well.
Which speaks about how the indigenous Brazilian population was kind of erased by colonialism and how that kind of still persists. And then there's the character of Hans, who is a Jewish Holocaust survivor, but he's thought of as like a Nazi fugitive because of the fact that he's German and has, war scars or something. And that story, the story of that character also really gets you, because I thought it was really funny of how they like go into his office, like these police figures and these like authority figures burst into his office and like kind of treat him like a toy, like show us your like scars or show us this or tell us your story. Treat him like basically a performing act.
Yeah.
And they clearly don't know that he is a Jewish Holocaust survivor. But there's a menorah right there.
I think this is something, again, I read, which was talking about how it's not that they don't know, it's that they don't care. And again, with the leg and the stories, the surrealism that acts into the film, which is like, it doesn't matter what it's true. It matters what's more entertaining, or it matters what gets people's attention more, distracts people more. And that is the thing with the Holocaust survivor, becomes that moment where his story is just consumed, or like he's just used as this prop piece for entertainment rather than something that actually needs to be delved into or understood, right? And this is something that the film continuously does, where the entire thing with Marcel, as we learn later on, is why he's being hunted is because as soon as you get into the truth more, or like you attack the system more, or why he at the end is being hunted, right?
Mhm.
Or like why any of these people is, again, there's a backlash that you face with the research and everything, that you're not supposed to find out too much, you're not supposed to understand it to the degree where you find the people who are to blame in that sense, right?
100%. And I think at the end of the day, this is a story about not just political refugees like Marcelo and the group of people, that he's hiding out with, who are all under aliases. But it's also about like the other people of Brazil who go
Mhm.
overlooked, like the political refugees. For example, Marcelo's wife, Fatima, who we don't really know much about until a lot into the movie, and her family
Mhm.
and her father, Alexander. And it's very clear that they are also not like as privileged, for example, as Marcelo would have been, because he was white
Mhm.
and they were.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that the narrative is a big kind of way of bringing to the surface all these people in Brazil that would otherwise go unnoticed.
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to say. I think in general, in a larger scheme, this film is not just about whatever the narrative is
Yeah.
happening at the moment. What it's doing much more is using that narrative to paint a much broader picture of that time in Brazil, as we mentioned before, and like highlight the like dictatorship in like more of a micro level. Like you see that with all of the pictures that this film like pauses for, like in the basically it's like film literally just distracts itself to, and it just shows you how it permeates into everything, how the corporate military dictatorship and like how they're tied together with this capitalistic forces, right? And how they're in opposition to each other. All of these things are not like the main center points of the film. They're much more on the background. They give context for every single thing. And I really came out of this when I was watching this was like, I wish I knew more, because it is so evident to me that there's so much here that I can't like harness, which because of my limited cultural knowledge of this period, very, very limited cultural knowledge of this period.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely understand that. And I think a lot of what this film does, like we spoke about the pacing of it, which is down to the writing. It's also written by Kleber Mendonça Filho, the director. But I think a lot of it is also character studies. And for that, I think it's the
Yeah.
actors. Wagner Moura does most of the kind of work as the main character, playing Marcelo. But I think that the
Mhm.
rest of the cast is also really, really fantastic. Like Roni Villela, who plays Augusto Borba, who's one of this kind of like hitmen. He is so sleazy and so slimy, and he plays that kind of like war veteran who thinks he's been wronged, but is kind of just morally just bad and evil and violent.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can't remember what the name of the chief of the police is.
So the chief of the police is Roberto Diogenes,
Yes,
who plays Captain Euclid. Like what does he keep calling himself? I completely am blanking on
sergeant,
it. Like something like commander or
or sergeant or something.
Like yeah, basic leader. I think. Yeah.
Exactly. And he reminds me of a lot of the corrupt police officers back home in India. And that's because, and that just goes to like how well he plays them, which is like, you recognize the corruptness, but then at the same time, he's also so naive and so exploitable while he's doing the exploiting in a lot of scenarios.
Yeah, he's very much a pawn in the grand scheme of things. Just not a pawn for your side, but a pawn nonetheless.
Exactly. And I just think all of them are also so funny. Like Wagner Moura, Roberto, Runivella, and Tanya Maria, who plays Donna Sebastiana, who kind of harbors all these political refugees. I just think they are all also so
Yeah.
funny. And I don't want to say unserious because these are very serious times that the film is depicting. But they manage to make these serious times feel unserious, which I think is fantastic.
I think it serves back to highlight like some of the humanity that is just inherently there within the people and the connection they form within themselves, right? Donna Sebastian does feel like this grandmother who's just there taking care of everyone, but like a grandmother who's lived a life, who's still living it as well, not just lived a life, who's just still living it. And just through very limited things, it just makes a character feel more fleshed out or more real. Than,
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. They all feel very well rounded, which is, I think, what comes with taking your time with it. Like, in terms of like the script and literally taking your time with it. Also, I feel the actors do a really good job of embodying and then fleshing out these characters for us to see as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think also I want to definitely shout out the music within the film.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
I think because there are two things, right? The film has, especially like we've mentioned, where the first two parts are kind of slow and take their time. They don't have much background music coming to them, especially non-diegetic ones, right? It's just being played through the speaker or like actually in the scene, right? And it's only in the third half when the chase starts and like all of those things start, when the music kicks up. And again, it's just that use specifically that gives this film so much more texture to it, right? Where the end feels is that mischief at its like most heightened place, right? Where it becomes that. But before that, it is much more step by step by step. And there's not really much music that comes into play there.
Yeah, the music definitely, like, especially towards the end, just like to me at least, it just pushed me further and further towards the edge of my seat. But by the end of it, I was like, oh my god, all right. And I think the music also reflects what I was saying earlier about the diversity of Brazil, because it doesn't just have the regular sound of Brazil that you would imagine or predict. And it's very layered and very like...
Yeah, exactly. Do you have anything else?
No, I was just going to say that I think between the two of us, I think we've watched all 5 Best Foreign Language Picture nominations for the Oscars this year. And I clearly have a favorite, and it's this one. It's between this one and It Was Just an Accident, because they both, to me, they're both very, very similar films, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah,
and I really enjoy that. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm still looking to watch Sirat and make up my mind on that. Personally, at this point, I also do find It Was Just an Accident would be my favorite amongst all of them. But again, haven't watched Sirat, and I'm looking forward to watching that and rounding that whole list up. But yeah, I think this film is like a genuinely such an incredible like summation of everything. Like it really captures a time period so well. I do again will just say, just make sure when you're watching this, you can pay attention to this film and you're not a bit sleepy like I was, which is not the best time to watch it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what you're saying. I definitely think this is a film that needs to be watched in the cinema for all sorts of reasons, including the ones you just said. Also, generally, like, if you can't make it, it's fine. But like you said, like, make sure like you set out a chunk of time and put yourself in a mind space to watch it, because it definitely is a film that we should be watching just for entertainment as well.
So yeah, those were the thoughts. Thank you for tuning in. This podcast is produced solely by us with musical assets from Pixabay. If you enjoyed this, please do share it. See you again next time.
Bye bye.